Hello, America. Welcome to Your Leo Nation, where we believe in and support the rule of law. I am the Chief, Mark Garrett. Let me dive right into this. The DC crackdown on crime, or I think more specifically and appropriately, on criminals. That's what we're dealing with here right now. Let me just give you a little bit of background. And this is from the Heritage Foundation. Its author was a commentary from Charles, his nickname is Cully Stimson. Again, Heritage Foundation. This is back in May, a few months ago of this year, obviously. And the reason I went back a little bit, because I think it's important to go back before this crackdown started a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C. in an attempt to clean up, by the way, so far a very successful attempt to clean up the crime, the criminal element in Washington, D.C., our nation's once beautiful capital, and hopefully future beautiful capital. The information I'm going to read here from this commentary, it's completely irrefutable, the numbers we're talking about. These crime stats speak for themselves, and so does some of the culture in Washington, D.C. as far as the political machine. So I'm going to read a little bit here to you. Washington, D.C., between 2018 and 2022, only 1.7% of people arrested for carrying a pistol without a license were sentenced to prison. According to the DC Metropolitan Police Department, firearms are used in approximately 77% of all homicides in Washington, D.C. Knives come in a distant second place at 14%. This is for all of you anti-gun activists out there. National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform figures show that 95.8% of homicide suspects in the district are male, and 96.8% of those are Black. Over 70% of suspects are between 18 and 34 years old. To look at the victim numbers, 89% are male, of whom 94.1% are Black. Over 62% of homicide victims are between 18 and 34 years old. To summarize, in Washington, D.C., unfortunately, as in many other places across this country, what we have here is an epidemic of young Black males murdering young Black males. It is a sad, tragic reality, but that is what it is. In her letter to Trump, DC Safe and Beautiful Task Force Mayor Muriel Bowser touts a 35% drop in violent crime in 2024 compared to 2023, including a 32% drop in homicides. She acknowledges that the district still has work to do in making the DC the safest city in the country, no doubt. She must believe that President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and others are oblivious to how much higher crime rates are in DC compared to other cities and how broken the system is from the inside out. Perhaps she doesn't realize just how bad it is in DC. In 2023, DC had a homicide rate of 40.9 homicides per 100,000 residents and ranked fourth worst in the nation behind only New Orleans, St. Louis, and Detroit. The homicide rates in the district per 100,000 residents in years past was 30 in 2022, 34 in 2021, and 29 in 2020. It was at 25 or less in all the previous 8 years and was low as 14 as recently as 2012. The homicide rate in 2024 was 27.3, according to the Center for Public Safety Initiatives at Rochester Institute of Technology. While a big drop from 2023 spike, it's still ranked fourth worst in the country. If DC were a state, it would have the highest homicide rate of any state in the United States and would be retaining that dubious title year after year. Now, again, there are people that want to make Washington, D.C. a state, so let's pretend that it is. It would be the worst in the entire country when it comes to homicide rate. Plain, simple, and not disputable. With that background in mind, let's unpack the Commission's gun arrest and sentencing data from 2018 to 2022. Stick with me, folks, this is important. Of the 5,558 total arrests for carrying a pistol without a license, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, essentially the local DA, refused to file a charge in 1,933 of those cases. So over a third of those cases, the charges were not even filed. Why the massive drop off from arrest to charging? Are cops making bad arrests? If so, why? Do they violate the suspect's Fourth Amendment rights? Are the prosecutors not able to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt? You would think that a 34% drop off between arrest and charging would be deeply concern the prosecutor's office. Most big city prosecutors' offices work closely with the police departments and engage in weekly or monthly trainings, but not the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. Why not? It's not like these are hard cases to prove. The elements are straightforward. You can't carry, either openly or concealed, any deadly or dangerous weapon or a pistol that is not licensed by the district. First-time offenders can be sentenced up to 5 years in prison. Recidivists can face up to 10 years in prison. And again, I'm just saying, for those people who say that guns are the reason for crime, that firearms should be very, very tightly regulated, if not banned altogether, wouldn't you be curious as to why this is happening in DC? That firearms violations, to a large extent, are not even being prosecuted, let alone getting convictions, letting people who violate these laws more than once back on the streets to do it again. Isn't there any level of curiosity? Well, the answer is no. One clue may be the fact that the DC U.S. Attorney's Office is woefully understaffed when it comes to in-house investigators. District attorneys' offices typically employ investigators who are assigned to line prosecutors and continue investigating cases to develop additional evidence once the police make an arrest and charges are filed against an individual. And I know this from personal experience to be absolutely true, even in my former state of California. The San Diego D's office, for example, has 330 prosecutors and 120 investigators, or one for every 2.3 prosecutors. The Riverside County D's office has 126 investigators, or one for every 1.6 prosecutors. The LA County DA's office has 900 prosecutors and 300 investigators, but is authorized to have up to 400 investigators. In contrast, DC has 330 prosecutors and only 3 investigators. 3 for 300 prosecutors. This helps explain why cases fall apart in the district even after charges are filed. And this opinion piece commentary goes on and on and on and on. But I hope that lays the background to DC. Obviously, there are many, many other factors that go into the historically high crime rate in Washington, D.C. Let me dive into what's happening now. Move forward a few months. We've had the federalization of DC, which is, again, is a little bit complicated, I guess, because it's a District of Columbia. It's not a state. It's a federal city. It's a capital. But President Trump has taken the authority away from local management, so to speak, and put it under the auspices of the federal government, which he has the right to do, at least for 30 days. And then from there, we can move forward. But what's happened in the last 2 weeks? It's been just over 2 weeks now in DC. And we talked about, obviously, the crime rate and who really are the victims of the crime. And again, it's tragic. It's almost exclusively, when we come to homicide, it's young black men who are killing each other. So what's happened in the last couple of weeks? So up to date, I think maybe up to the end of July, there were 101 homicides in Washington, D.C. up to about a month ago, give or take. It's about 14 a month. In the last 2 weeks, there have been 0 murders in Washington, D.C. And again, according to the numbers, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the demographics historically, that means, quite frankly, that there are probably 14 or so, or actually 2 weeks, let's say 7. There are probably 7 young black men alive today that would not be alive were it not for this incredibly successful crackdown. What else is going on? 111 guns have been seized since this effort has commenced in Washington, D.C. These are real tangible facts, folks. When you look at prosecutor here, Jeanine Pirro, let me read a little bit here. I just talked about this. Under President Trump, federal crime crackdown D.C., blown past 1,000 arrests, 12 consecutive day, 13 days now as we record, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro announced. Pirro said on Sunday alone, 86 arrests, 10 illegal guns seized, bringing the totals to 1,007 arrests and 111 guns taken off the street. This is a quality of life. It is the ultimate rule of law reality. You bring in law enforcement, you literally hold people to account. And as we said in the California Highway Patrol, just being out there in a marked black and white in-view patrol, it deters people from running a red light or from speeding or from not wearing a seatbelt, whatever it is. And in this case, we're talking about in-view patrol, showing authority, not only showing the physical manpower, but also the political will to enforce the law. People don't break the law, certainly not at the extent to which they were doing it previous to this effort. This is what government is supposed to do. Its first responsibility is for the safety of its citizens, and yes, visitors to the country, the people who are here, but primarily and immediately to the citizens of the country, of your city, your county, your state, and yes, federal jurisdiction. That's the first responsibility, or it should be, of government, and we're seeing it work extremely well in Washington, D.C. So let me move on here to the other end of the spectrum. This is like it's like a nightmare. It's like a nightmare in the making, as far as I'm concerned, for the people of New York. Because what we're seeing happening in New York City right now, we've already seen this movie. We've already seen this movie in California. And we've seen the sequel to the movie in California. But now we're seeing a brand new version of this play out in New York City. And what I'm talking about Zohran Mamdami. I almost said Mamdami because he is in the sense of, when it comes to public safety, when it comes to free market, when it comes to individual liberty. But I have to say this: I make fun of him because we should make fun of him, because he's an absolute danger to the people of New York City. But he's a savvy politician. He's no dummy there, and it's very frightening. Let me read a little bit here to you about this. Democrat mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdami and his comrades at the Democrat Socialist America want to wipe out the enforcement of all misdemeanor offenses, the Post has learned. This is from the New York Post. In its most recent platform, the group blasts policing and detention as quote-unquote instruments of class war designed to quote-unquote guarantee the domination of the working class. You know, Karl Marx, Engels, I mean, these people could not have written a more clear communist manifesto than what I read right there. Guarantee the domination of the working class. and demands an end to what it calls, quote unquote, the criminalization of working class survival. Before I go on with this, this is the style in which the left communicates. I'll put that word in quotes. Certainly promotes its positions. It speaks in these general collective terms without any specificity, without actually articulating exactly what it is they want to do. They talk about this is class warfare, is what it comes down to. This is class warfare. It's them against us. It's us against them. And this is exactly what this guy and the people who support him are doing. For all the working class to achieve collective liberation, we must constrain, diminish, and abolish the carceral forces of the state, from prisons and police themselves to their manifestations in all form throughout society, according to the National Party's latest platform adopted in 2021. It gets better. On the campaign trail, Mamdami has repeatedly called for the police to stop focusing on what he referred to as non-serious crimes. Don't focus on non-serious crimes. Police have a critical role to play, but right now we're relying on them to deal with the failures of our social safety network, which is preventing them from doing their actual jobs, he said in the campaign video posted at X on Wednesday. The DSA has also pushed to slash arrests, cut prosecutors' budgets, abolish cash bail. This is a big one. He and this platform, they want to abolish cash bail. By the way, if you want to learn about the history and the absolute necessity for cash bail, please check out our guest we had. I think it was episode 30, but you can find some shorts too. Anthony, if you can, link whatever you can with John McKinney about cash bail. Absolutely solid with its analysis and his reasoning for cash bail and how it's one of the most equitable things that you can do for an individual, quite frankly, and more importantly for society when it comes to protecting people. But again, this is part of it. Abolish cash bail in all forms of pre-trial detention. Scrap electronic monitoring and end imprisonment for parole violations. I don't know what else to say besides this is absolute insanity. Again, we're going to talk about California. Well, I'll talk about California right now. Do you remember this? So he wants to end all misdemeanor arrests. He wants to end all misdemeanor prosecutions in the city of New York. Talk about that here in a second. Do you remember when they did this in California? I was there. This goes back 10, 11 years ago when they passed Proposition 47 in California. And I could not, along with my other law enforcement colleagues, could not have been more opposed to this because we all saw the train wreck coming. We all saw the vandalism and the flash mobs and the assaults and the murders. We all saw it coming because we knew that many of the people that were convicted of misdemeanors have actually committed untold numbers of felonies. Sometimes they're only caught for misdemeanors. Sometimes misdemeanors or felonies are pled down to misdemeanors. But anyway, this is just easy for anybody with two brain cells to see the train wreck coming. Fast forward, remember I talked about the original movie in California, the sequel. The sequel was last year, 70% of Californians voted to get rid of all that crap, Prop 47. Remember anything under $999 is only a misdemeanor. Going to a Target, going to a Walmart and steal, under $1,000, it's only a misdemeanor, and no one's prosecuting for misdemeanors in California at the time. And it was not cumulative. You could go into a store every single day, and every offense was separate. You couldn't stack them. So people could literally go in from day to day to day to day to day and steal as much as they wanted to at one time, under $1,000, and it was only a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, those same people these are the same individuals, many of them, not everyone, but many of them, who are also committing untold numbers of felonies. So if you're able to get someone locked up and complete investigations, you can find out they committed felonies, and you're getting them off the street, obviously, so they can't commit any more crime. So 70% of the people in California last year voted with Prop 36 to repeal all that crap. Go ahead and re-implement the felony status for those same crimes, including drug offenses, things like this have been whittled down to misdemeanors. 70%. You can't get 70% of Californians to agree on what day of the week it is. And don't forget, it's about 60% Democrat, 40% Republican in California, yet 70% of the people, which means a huge chunk of Democrats, voted for Prop 36 to reverse that madness in California that cost the blood and treasure of so many Californians over the last decade. Now what are we seeing? We're seeing the reboot of the original movie in California and New York City, at least as far as this candidate is concerned. He doubled down on his long-standing push to legalize prostitution this week. This guy is a piece of work. On the campaign trail, Mamdami backtracked from his prior defund the police views in the wake of the Park Avenue massacre, insisting he'd keep the NYPD roughly its current size and redirect officers to focus only on serious crimes. Now, how nebulous is that? Now, obviously, anybody can identify a serious crime, murder versus shoplifting a candy bar out of a 7-Eleven. Okay, we could all agree on that. But serious crime has no definitive circumstance around it. It is a totality of circumstances. There can be a lot of things that people don't think are serious. I'll tell you a serious crime. I'll tell you a serious crime right now. Somebody who has committed their 47th theft in the last 50 days. Why is that serious? Because that's 47 people or individuals or businesses that are affected and, quite frankly, terrified by people like this. Maybe not to a serious crime for a news reporter or for a mayoral candidate of New York City, but for the people being victimized, that's a damn serious crime. This is what this guy is steeped in. He believes in breaking down the civil society, breaking down the rule of law, so he and other government elitists have more control over the individual. This is exactly what we're talking about. So again, he wants to end prosecution of all misdemeanors in New York. Now, whether or not he can do that, there's a lot to it, but yeah, I don't know. But the point is he has this mentality. If people think that New York is bad now, just wait until this guy becomes mayor. And unfortunately, unless Eric Adams or someone drops out of this race, he's going to be mayor. He has a plurality of support right now, which is mind-boggling that people who actually live in New York City and all experience a crime would vote for this guy. But he's going to win unless one of those other 2 or 3 candidates drop out. Only time will tell. God bless you in New York City. I hope you come to your senses and don't vote this guy into office, but it's not looking good right now. For your Orleo Nation, I'm the Chief, Mark Garrett. Stay safe. Hug your kids. We'll see you next time.